There's a part of us, deep down, that craves individuality. We want to be original, authentic, unfiltered. But Law 38 whispers something different. Think as you like, but behave like others.
Because the raw truth is, standing out can be dangerous. Not because you're wrong, but because people fear what they don't understand. And difference threatens.
This law isn't telling you to be fake. It's telling you to be strategic, to protect your private thoughts while respecting the public rhythm, to blend in just enough to move undetected.
Robert Greene is brutally honest here. Society doesn't reward rebellion, it punishes it. Not overtly, but subtly, through exclusion, suspicion, isolation.
So if you show up broadcasting how different you are, morally, intellectually, politically, you invite resistance, not because of what you said, but how you made them feel.
Which is why Greene's advice is subversive. He says, keep your thoughts sharp, keep your ideas dangerous, but your face, keep it familiar.
Because in the game of power, invisibility is a superpower. Not literal invisibility, but ideological camouflage. You don't need to be loud to be revolutionary.
And in many ways, the most effective disruptors are the ones who look normal. They pass through unnoticed until they've already shifted the ground.
So this law is about timing, about positioning, about knowing when to reveal your difference and when to protect it.
And in a world obsessed with authenticity, this feels almost taboo. But Greene doesn't care about trends, he cares about what works. And sometimes survival comes before expression.
It's not about hiding, it's about holding, about recognizing that your power loses nothing by being private. In fact, it may grow stronger there.
Because when you move like others, they stop watching you. And when they stop watching, that's when you're free to build. It's interesting. This law sounds almost like a betrayal of self, especially in a culture that tells us, be yourself, speak your truth, stand out. But Greene flips that. He says, don't confuse expression with effectiveness.
Right. It's not that being authentic is wrong, it's that being openly different in the wrong environment can backfire. Not because you're incorrect, but because you're early or unguarded.
And the reaction isn't always dramatic, it's subtle. You get left out of decisions, conversations shift when you walk in, your influence fades quietly, because people label what they don't relate to.
This law forces us to accept a harsh truth. We live in tribes, and tribes protect sameness. They reward conformity because it preserves stability. Difference threatens that.
So Greene's message is blend in to build power, then choose your moment to reveal it, not out of fear, but out of strategy.
It's the difference between screaming your ideas and seeding them. When you seed, you don't trigger alarm. You move through the system unnoticed until you've changed it.
And that's subversion in its highest form, because it's not rebellion for show, it's quiet transformation. No noise, just results.
Think of people in organizations. The ones who last are rarely the loudest disruptors. They're the ones who understand the politics, who nod in meetings but act independently after hours.
And in time, those are the ones who end up leading, because they didn't burn the structure down, they learned it, navigated it, then outgrew it from the inside.
This law forces us to accept a harsh truth. We live in tribes, and tribes protect sameness. They reward conformity because it preserves stability. Difference threatens that.
So Greene's message is blend in to build power, then choose your moment to reveal it, not out of fear, but out of strategy.
It's the difference between screaming your ideas and seeding them. When you seed, you don't trigger alarm. You move through the system unnoticed until you've changed it.
And that's subversion in its highest form, because it's not rebellion for show, it's quiet transformation. No noise, just results.
Think of people in organizations. The ones who last are rarely the loudest disruptors. They're the ones who understand the politics, who nod in meetings but act independently after hours.
And in time, those are the ones who end up leading, because they didn't burn the structure down, they learned it, navigated it, then outgrew it from the inside.
This law is uncomfortable because it challenges our pride. We want to be seen as bold, brave, uncompromising. But sometimes the bravest thing is strategic silence.
Or a well-timed yes, a moment of pretending to agree, not to betray your truth, but to protect it until the room is ready.
Because power isn't always about confrontation, it's about calculation. And those who master that, who know when to blend and when to stand, play the long game better than anyone.
There's a tragic pattern in history. Brilliant minds who burned too brightly too soon. Visionaries who challenged convention openly and were crushed by the system they tried to change.
Absolutely. Socrates comes to mind. He questioned everything, lived with radical honesty, refused to bend, and it cost him his life. The state saw his ideas not as curiosity, but as corruption.
And then there's Galileo. He brought truth, literal scientific truth, but he defied the church too publicly. He was forced to recant, imprisoned, not because he was wrong, but because he was loudly right.
These stories remind us that being right isn't enough. In fact, being right too early and too visibly can be fatal. The masses need time, and spectacle isn't the same as readiness.
That's why Greene insists on restraint, not because the world doesn't need change, but because change requires survival. You can't lead transformation if you've been silenced at the gate.
And the irony? Many of the greatest changes in history were made by those who did believe differently, but behaved in ways the world could tolerate, at least until they had leverage.
Exactly. Think about religious reformers who worked inside institutions, artists who used traditional formats to smuggle radical themes, entrepreneurs who wore the suit just long enough to rewrite the rules.
That's the essence of this law. Don't expose your mind until the environment can hold it. Think like a rebel, move like a citizen.
And this isn't just history. It happens in everyday life, in the workplace, at family dinners, on social media. When you break social codes too publicly, you trigger defense, not dialogue.
You become the other. And once you're labeled that way, people stop hearing you. They reduce you, dismiss you, and now your ideas, no matter how valuable, get ignored.
So Greene gives us a choice: blend to be heard or speak too soon and vanish. And while that may feel restrictive, it's actually freeing.
Because when you don't need to prove how different you are, you gain freedom to be as different as you want, on your own terms.
There's something powerful about moving through a space without drawing suspicion, not because you're hiding, but because you're conserving energy. That's what this law teaches.
Yes, it's about emotional discipline. You don't need to react to everything. You don't need to correct everyone. That impulse to set the record straight can actually drain your influence.
Because when you behave like others, just enough, you get access to systems, conversations, relationships. You enter rooms where being too different might have kept you out.
And once you're inside, once you understand the rhythm, you can start shaping it subtly, patiently, without resistance. Because you look like them, but you think like something else entirely.
It's what makes this law so subversive. It doesn't say conform, it says adapt. And adaptation isn't weakness, it's survival intelligence.
It's also about protecting your inner world. When you expose your deepest values to the wrong audience, they don't respect it, they interrogate it, or worse, ridicule it.
And that ridicule doesn't just damage your reputation, it can make you doubt your own clarity. Suddenly, your truth feels shaky, not because it's wrong, but because it was received with judgment.
So this law is a shield, not for cowards, for strategists. It's about choosing when to reveal, what to reveal, and to whom.
And that level of discernment is rare. Most people live on broadcast mode, saying everything, showing everything, reacting instantly. But power moves differently. It observes first.
It mirrors when necessary, smiles when expected, waits, and when the time is right, it moves with precision.
And maybe that's the paradox. True authenticity doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need constant proof. It sits quietly behind the curtain until the moment to step out is undeniable.
So when Greene says, behave like others, he's not suggesting you become them. He's saying, master the environment, speak the native language, and then plant your truth in a way they'll accept.
Because influence isn't about volume, it's about resonance. And sometimes the quietest presence holds the sharpest edge.
Let's bring this into the real world. Think about corporate environments. If you come in day one challenging the culture, rejecting the dress code, questioning the mission, even if you're right, you'll be labeled difficult.
Exactly. You become the outsider. And once that label sticks, every move you make is filtered through it. People stop listening to your ideas. They start managing your presence.
But if you observe first, adapt, learn the language of the room, you build trust, you get influence. And once you have that, you can start shaping the culture from the inside.
It's the long game, and Greene always plays the long game. This law is about planting ideas quietly, not throwing grenades publicly.
Same with social movements. The leaders who last aren't always the loudest. They're the ones who know when to speak to the system and when to speak through it.
Because sudden rebellion provokes defense, but subtle integration opens doors. It's not about dilution, it's about delivery.
And even in creative industries, where individuality is celebrated, there's still a structure. Deadlines, clients, markets. If you ignore all of that in the name of authenticity, you may win pride, but lose momentum.
That's a key point. Authenticity is powerful, but without strategy, it can become isolation. You're real and alone, which, in the game of power, is not a position of strength.
What Greene offers here is emotional maturity, the ability to separate identity from behavior, to know who you are internally while adapting externally for greater reach.
It's the leadership skill, to meet people where they are, not where you wish they were. And from that shared space, you can guide them towards something deeper.
That's influence, not control, not manipulation, but translation. You take what's true for you and express it in a language they can hear.
So behaving like others isn't surrender, it's strategy. And the more intentional you are about it, the less you lose yourself in the process.
Because power doesn't require you to be loud, it requires you to be readable. And once you're readable on their terms, you can rewrite the narrative entirely.
So if there's one message that echoes through this law, it's this. Power doesn't need to be loud to be real. Sometimes it's the quiet ones, the ones who blend in, who are holding the sharpest blades.
Because when you stop needing to be seen for your difference, you free yourself to move with more range. You become flexible, stealthy, impossible to pin down.
And that's true power. Not being the loudest mind in the room, but being the mind no one suspects until it's too late to stop you.
This law asks for emotional detachment, the ability to hold your truth even when you can't yet speak it, to wait, not out of fear, but out of wisdom.
Because timing isn't just a detail in the power game, it's the whole board. You can have the right vision, the right values, but if your behavior exposes them too early, you lose position.
It's camouflage, not as deception, but as preparation. You move like them so you can build where they live, and when the moment is right, you reveal what you've built, fully formed.
And by then, you're undeniable, because you're not asking permission, you're presenting results.
This law is an invitation to be patient, intentional, and emotionally intelligent, to understand that power isn't just about who you are, it's about how and when you reveal it.
Next week, we shift from camouflage to charisma. Law 39, stir up waters to catch fish. A law about emotion, provocation, and how chaos can be used to manipulate perception.
We'll dive into the psychology of agitation, how those who control emotion, especially other people's, control the entire game.
But for now, sit with this. Your thoughts are sacred. Keep them sharp, keep them hidden, and let your behavior be the mask that buys you time.
Because when you master adaptation, not to blend forever, but to build freely, that's when your difference becomes destiny.